folks? Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. What is it with Maryland? We've got another murder now by an illegal alien in the state of Maryland. Maryland is ground zero for these illegal alien crimes. You've got Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, the Maryland man who was deported to El Salvador. We'll talk about that. New crime, by the way, that was uncovered by my buddy John Solomon over at Just the News. Abrego Garcia was apparently trafficking other illegals, caught in a van, I believe in Tennessee. They arrest him in that van. He's got 7 other illegals with him in a van registered to a known human trafficker. And what does Joe Biden's FBI do? They let him go. But again, this is the poster boy for the Democrats. Now to the other story. We've got another woman who was murdered, found in the woods in Maryland, dug down into a 6-foot makeshift grave just outside of Washington, D.C., killed in the same county where that beautiful Rachel Morin was also killed. So why? Why Maryland? Well, I think what you see from Senator Chris Van Hollen going down and visiting Abrego Garcia in Maryland tells you a lot about why Maryland. Because they incentivize illegal immigration. They embrace illegal alien criminals. They give them driver's licenses. They give them all kinds of state-run benefits. Maryland is a sanctuary state, so they know they can commit crimes there and virtually get away with it. All right, before we start the show, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Energized Health. You know, I lost 15 pounds in literally 2 weeks on the Energized Health program. This is all about cellular hydration, getting hydrated at a cellular level. It's not just about chugging water. It's how you get that water into your cells that improves joint pain, that helps you lose fat. And I mean lose fat fast, gain muscle mass. My testosterone went up. My cholesterol went down. All of this is a benefit of a total mind, body, soul program that if you need to get back in shape, I'm telling you, Energized Health can help you do it. There's individual coaching. There's weekly Zoom calls. There's daily videos. There's recipes. Everything you need for success is right there in the Energized Health system. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. Go there today. Pay them a visit. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right, let's get this party started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome, everybody. So Maryland is ground zero for heinous crimes committed by illegal aliens against innocent victims. Police found a woman by the name of Lesbia Ramirez, 23 years old, in the woods. Murdered, police say, by her boyfriend, this Casey Barrera Rosa. He is now in ICE custody. This is how the local news laid it out.
Now, this is the father of her children, Casey Barrera Rosa. He's charged with murder, and he's currently in ICE's custody. And we also have this mugshot of his uncle. Authorities charge Rolvin Barrera with being an accessory to the crime. A spokesperson for the Charles County Sheriff's Office says the suspect was methodical in hiding this woman's body, burying her deep, and using old dirt to conceal the hole.
Upon discovering her body, which was wrapped in a blanket and again buried about 5 feet below the ground, it was a moment of relief for the detectives that they were able to tell her family, we have found her.
So when we first reported this, authorities told us that they found fraudulent immigration documents for Barrera Rosa and confirmed he was in the U.S. illegally.
I want to congratulate that ABC 7 out of Washington, D.C. for declaring that he was there illegally. Now, I think they did what we in the business call buried the lead. I think the lead should have been right off the top. An illegal alien criminal killed his girlfriend. Okay, that should be the lead, but at least they mentioned it. I watched a report from DC News Now. They do an entire report on this case and don't even mention that this cat was here illegally. Don't even mention it. That's the kind of dereliction of duty, these lies by omission that have Democrats, many uninformed Americans as well, just duped to the horrors of illegal immigration and what it does to America and what it can cause. So when you look at that, you've got to say, hey, something's wrong here. Something's wrong in Maryland. This is what Andy No was calling out. I call him a chaos reporter. He was great at exposing Antifa. He's great at exposing illegal immigration, too. He went on Newsmax with my buddy here.
What I've learned in my reporting on the Salvadoran suspect who's been all over the news because of the Democrats is that Maryland in recent years has become a hub on the East Coast for illegal migrants. And in fact, just this week, a illegal migrant suspect was arrested out of state and is facing extradition to Maryland. And he's accused of strangling his female partner to death in Maryland and burying her body in the same county that Mr. Abrego Garcia lives in. And the second suspect in that gruesome murder is a relative of unknown immigration status of the main suspect. So in this case, is not the only one. In 2022, there was a young woman named Kayla Hamilton who was abducted, raped, and strangled to death in Maryland, Harford County. And of course, many people know the case of Rachel Morin, who was killed in 2023 by an illegal migrant.
So this Harford County is, as we mentioned, ground zero for these kinds of things happening. You have Rachel Morin. You have Miss Hamilton, who was murdered. You got this Abrego Garcia coming out. Now, it's a big county, right? It's a county right by Washington, D.C. The sheriff in that county is not happy about all this. He wants it to end. He went on with Benny Johnson.
Sheriff, I want to thank you for being on the program this past weekend with us, the evidence that this man is an MS-13 gang member.
Well, I've read the reports, and absolutely, this is, and thanks for having me on. This is such a horrific story from the sense that this is the jurisdiction, if your listeners and the viewers aren't aware, this is where Rachel Morin's horrific murder and rape took place in my jurisdiction. My agency investigated that crime. And the Kayla Hamilton case from the year before, where she was killed at the hands of an MS-13 member illegally in the country. And these are the types of individuals that our state senator does not reach out to those families and yet travels to El Salvador to visit with an affiliate. You know, if not a full-fledged gang member, certainly an affiliate. There's plenty of information out there to demonstrate that through the tattoos, through the clothing, through the admissions, through different reports that are out in the public that I have read. He is certainly tied directly to the MS-13 gang. And as people should be aware, MS-13 has been a gang that goes back more than 40, 50 years in this country, known for their propensity for severe violence, drug dealing, murders, and they rule with a iron fist. You know, MS-13 being a criminal illegal gang is about as common knowledge as gravity keeps us planet to the earth.
So MS-13, we know, has, as the sheriff said, been around for a really, really long time. I don't need to tell you how brutal it is. But what I do need to tell you is that you've got Democrats that enable MS-13 gang members. Our open border policies, when you look at it, it could be a possibility of 10, 20 million illegal aliens come in here, even if a small percentage of them are MS-13 gang members. And what about the small percentage of them that are Muslim Islamic terrorists that have come in? We know that that is the case as well. We're going to get to that a little bit later on in the program today. So all of this hurts us. And yet Democrats, especially congressional Democrats, Senate Democrats, are doubling down on Abrego Garcia, doubling down on the idea that we want illegal aliens here when overwhelmingly the American citizenry is right behind President Trump on these mass deportations. The reason being is because we don't want to see Americans killed anymore. This is Rachel Morin's mother, and I'll tell you what, I am so impressed by these family members that are going on these national news stations and telling their stories. It is waking up everyday folks to the ills of illegal immigration. Rachel Morin's mother, watching her pain and watching her grieve over and over again to spread a message so we can get things finally changed in America, is helping this country so, so very much, and I'm grateful to her. But I can't imagine what it's like to have to tell your story over and over again.
There's been more than one murder here in Harford County. There was Kaylee Hamilton in 2023 or 2022. It was my daughter back in 2023. And at the time, they knew that they were immigrants that were in this country illegally, so they broke federal law. They committed crimes, violent crimes. They broke state law. And yet there was no outcry, or anger that these crimes were being committed against these women.
So think about that. You've got elected leaders in Maryland. You've got a county that's now ground zero for the murders. And there's no outcry from Senator Van Hollen. There's no outcry from members of Congress from Maryland. And yet, what are they doing? They're going to El Salvador to argue for due process for an illegal alien who is apparently trafficking other illegal aliens, a domestic abuser and an MS-13 gang member. That's who they're arguing for, but not speaking up saying, hey, we want our American citizens safe. That's the travesty of it all. She calls it out perfectly.
And children. And now I have a senator who's in El Salvador who is loudly advocating for another immigrant who's in the country illegally, has broken federal law by doing that, has beaten his wife, violence, has broken state law by doing that, and yet his actions are he's advocating for this man. And he's saying, well, he's a dad. He's been a good guy. He's been here. There are a lot of fathers that are in jail. The point is, they keep saying, rule of law. But by him going down there, he's advocating for this person that has actually broken the law that he claims to be upholding by advocating for someone who has broken federal law and state law. And his silence towards my daughter and towards Kaylee shows that he has no, where his values are, that he would rather value the criminal than the victim.
All right, I'd like to ask you, if you're a Democrat, thank God you're not. Maybe some of you are watching. I know you love to torture yourselves watching me. But if you're a Democrat and you're Senator Van Hollen, and you pull this stunt, and that's what it is, and you go to El Salvador, and now you see one of your constituents, because that's what Rachel Morin's mom is. It's one of his constituents saying, hey, you never called me. You never checked on my family. You never asked us what we need. And you see her on the national news programs going on and on about this. Would you not make a phone call to her? Would you not invite her to your office to talk? I would. Now, it would be a media spectacle. I'd try to control it somehow, make it an area where it's somewhat private. But I would call her in, and I would apologize to her for not calling her early. But again, this is something that would never happen to me because I would have been on the phone as a United States Senator, one of my constituents, if this happened from the very next day, maybe within hours. But not the Democrats that we are watching now go advocate for a man who, if history is the judge, could be a potential killer. Could be. We don't know that. But if you're here illegally, if you're not in the country, you can't kill. That's the bottom line through all of this. So we're going to continue this. I'm going to play the newest information about the human trafficking that Abrego Garcia is accused of and why all of this matters. But before I do, let me tell you about Patriot Mobile. So Patriot Mobile provides the service for my cell phone. I've got two numbers from two different networks on one phone. That is great. No other cell phone company can do that for you. Patriot Mobile can. It's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They boldly and proudly proclaim themselves that because they want you to know where they stand. They stand the same place we do. In the gap, protecting the Constitution and this country, doing everything they can to move this country in the right direction. This is why I support Patriot Mobile. It is the official wireless provider of Stinchfield's Army. So I urge you, please make the switch today. If you're not making the switch, I don't know what you're waiting for. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. 972-PATRIOT is the number. 972-PATRIOT. Call them today. Use the promo code GRANT. Get a free first month service. Don't wait any longer. Just do it. Use that promo code GRANT. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. All right. So Abrego Garcia is now accused of human trafficking. Now, this goes back a little bit. But the fact that he was let go by the FBI, who told the Tennessee State Police to let him go, is really a total disgrace. Brian Kilmeade spelled out what my buddy John Solomon had found. Watch.
Learn tonight more about Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You remember him. He's in the news more than Trump these days. A new report suggests something strange was going on when he was pulled over on a Tennessee highway in 2022. The officer at the time suspected it was a human trafficking incident, and it looks like that, doesn't it? Now we're told through a DHS source that the car Abrego Garcia was driving belonged to a convicted human smuggler. This guy's really a delight. 8 other people were with him. They all used the same home address as Abrego Garcia, and no one has luggage for the drive. How do you figure that? Texas to Maryland, no luggage? Spanning multiple days, multiple states.
No luggage in a van that is registered, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned that yet, registered to a known human trafficker. And Abrego Garcia is driving. He gets picked up and let go.
Thing is not adding up here. You put it together. No wonder Democrats are fighting so hard to get him back.
We have to have the courage to be down there and to be in places, even if we don't have the security that we need. We have to continue showing up.
We have to do everything we can right now. We went over there to try our best to see him, to make sure he's okay.
I hope other members of Congress come here and see this for themselves.
Why? I just really honestly don't get it. Common sense tells me if you're a Democrat, you'd want to get as far away from this thing as you can. So let's see. First, it comes out that we're arguing whether or not he's an MS-13 gang member, while Democrats are arguing that he's a Maryland dad, okay? A Maryland man. Then it comes out that he's here illegally, okay? So MS-13 gang member, here illegally. Then we learn that there were deportation orders in place. 2 courts rule he's an MS-13 gang member. Still, Democrats are fighting for this guy. That would have been enough for me to say, you know what, maybe you want to separate. Then it comes down to these 2 domestic abuse cases where he was ordered not to go back to the home, and cops were trying to protect his wife and or girlfriend, whatever she was at the time, from him. Domestic abuser, okay? Now you think, okay, you put hands on a woman, you're accused of being an MS-13 gang member, maybe we ought to separate. Nope. Democrats continue to double down. Then we learn that now he's an alleged human trafficker, driving a van with 8 illegals in it with no luggage from Texas to Maryland, all using his home address. To me, again, why are you on the side of this guy? And yet, this is exactly what Van Hollen, the senator, is advocating for. Bring him home.
Did you walk into a trap, though? I mean, they bring him to your hotel. He's in the civilian clothes, and you met with him. We saw the images. You put out the picture of meeting with him. The beginning of the meeting. You're sitting there. You're drinking water and talking to the guy in the hotel lobby, I assume. And then at some point they bring in these glasses that look like margarita glasses.
No, it wasn't a trap. My goal was to meet with him.
Yeah.
And make sure I could tell his wife and family he was.
So what's interesting is you got the ABC anchor, John whatever his name is, saying that it was a trap, it was a setup. They tried to set you up, Senator. He's an innocent guy, and they wanted to bring you margarita glasses to show you that he's being taken care of. So well, it's not a setup job. It's not a setup job when you're an MS-13 gang member. You're in El Salvador. They want to meet with you. They bring you to the hotel. And whether he's got margarita glasses or not, the man is who he is, okay? And he deserves to be in El Salvador. And it sounds to me like he deserves to be in that prison.
Okay, that was my goal, and I achieved that goal. You're absolutely right. that the Salvadoran authorities tried to deceive people. They tried to make it look like he was in paradise. They actually wanted to have the meeting by the hotel pool originally.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had to negotiate that. They wanted to put me right overlooking the pool. In fact, if you had a different angle on the camera shot, you would see the pool.
Because they did, right. Bukele put out a statement saying, miraculously risen from the death camps and torture and sipping margaritas with you. Yeah. I mean, they were really trying to make you look like you were hanging out with somebody that they say is a gang member.
Well, if they were trying to make him look like a gang member, wouldn't they have put him in an orange prison jumpsuit? No. What they were doing was the joke was on Van Hollen, and it really was. Here you are in El Salvador at a resort, sipping margaritas with the guy who's being tortured. Apparently, he's not being tortured. He's being given margaritas, at least when he's in front of the cameras. And quite frankly, who cares? I don't. Now, the Democrats, one of the things they're screaming and yelling about is no due process. Due process, due process, due process. Well, this is Senator J.D. Vance talking about due process.
Abrego Garcia's wife has been very vocal about how she doesn't think he's getting due process, and she now also fears for her safety. Do you have a message to her specifically?
Well, I don't have a message to his wife. I mean, look, I just disagree with the idea that he hasn't been offered due process. He had a couple of immigration hearings. He had a valid deportation order. I think this idea that somehow that we couldn't deport an MS-13 gang member, and he was an MS-13 gang member, is preposterous. And I think there's actually a deeper issue going on, which is that you see some radical judges at the district court level who are trying to layer so much quote-unquote process on top of the immigration system that it makes it impossible to function. We have over 20 million illegal aliens in the United States of America. Are we not allowed to deport them? Because if we're not allowed to deport them, then what these district courts are saying is fundamentally they reject the will of the American people as it was expressed in November of 2024. We just reject that. I believe the American people elected President Trump to do many jobs, but perhaps the most important job was to bring down the number of illegal immigration in this country. That's what he's trying to do.
So now the next job is to get them out of the country. That's the next job. So you stop the flow, now decrease those who are here. Will we get there? It's going to be very difficult when you have these activist rogue judges who are literally ordering against President Trump to stop deporting illegal alien criminals. How are we going to get them out of here? See, I think the Democrats knew what they were doing. They knew that if they bring in all of these illegal aliens, tens of millions of them, I believe it's 20 million is the number. They bring them in, they get the rogue activist judges to say everybody needs a trial. So God forbid if Trump comes in, we're going to give everyone, quote, due process, which I believe the way I read the Constitution, they are not entitled to if they do not have any papers whatsoever, okay? But we're going to give them all trials. It'll take 10 years in order to get through all of them. If we're lucky, 10 years, that would be $1 million a year for a trial, $2 million a year for a trial. It's not going to happen. So all they got to do is get through a few years, and if they, God forbid, take over the White House again, then it's a new day and they're all set free. The whole thing is scheming the courts. It's like running out the clock because they know the courts move at a snail's pace. So they jam up the courts and then their policies remain in place. Now, this cat has been going down to El Salvador, and he continues to argue for him. This is Congressman Garcia. What a nutcase this guy is.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people are there and continue the pressure on what is clearly an illegal deportation of Kilmar Garcia and so many others. To be really clear, the United States Supreme Court has voted a 9-0 unanimous decision that Kilmar needs to be facilitated and have a return back to the United States. Lower courts have affirmed this. The Trump administration themselves have admitted that they sent Kilmar Garcia there on accident. So there is no reason why he should not be back home. And the real issue is really beyond an immigration story here or an immigration crisis. This is about the rule of law. It's about due process. It's about everyone in this country who, under the Constitution, is afforded due process, whether they're a U.S. citizen, a temporary resident, on a student visa. That is a bedrock of the United States of America. Now, we had meetings yesterday, classified briefings with the U.S. ambassador, folks on the ground, Kilmar's family, very, very productive, putting a lot of pressure on the Salvadorian government.
Shut up. I can't take it. Why do I even give them? You know why I give them the platform to speak? Because I want you to see what we are up against. I want you to hear the ridiculousness of all of them. Do you know, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, do you know we have American hostages right now in Venezuela that Nicolas Maduro is holding? At least 9 of them by my count. Rick Grinnell went down. He got 6 of them out of there. There's 9 left, including a Navy SEAL and a highly decorated Air Force veteran. Now, where are these United States senators and members of Congress when it comes to getting them out of Venezuela? American citizens. They are nowhere. So I want to talk about that. I want them talking about that. Let's fight for American citizens like you fight for illegal aliens. They won't do it. You know, I'm looking at the Rumble chat here, and, it's hard for me to do the podcast and go to the chat. I try to. But Alicia52, and I put in the chat, Alicia, please email me, and I put my email address in there. Anybody is more than welcome to email me, by the way. I read every one of the emails I get. The website, grantstinchfield.com, has an email box as well, and those come directly to me. So if you ever have to get in contact with me, that's a good way to do it. Alicia52 writes, 2 MS-13 gang members tried to kidnap my 14-year-old daughter while she was with me at Ralph's Supermarket in Los Angeles in West L.A. I would love to tell this story. Well, I would love to have you tell this story. Did they get caught? Roland from Texas writes, yes, they did, she says. So, Alicia, I would like you to email me, grant@grantstinchfield.com, with your contact information, and I'll put you on the Real America's Voice show and have you tell your story. And maybe your daughter can come with you for that, because this is how they end up getting young girls and pushing them into the sex trade industry by literally kidnapping them. And it's a quiet story that happens across the country that is rarely ever talked about. Alicia Vidju writes, they followed me and my daughter out of the market, and then I threatened to run them over. So email me. I'd love to hear the story, Alicia, and we'll get you on to tell it. Okay. I just got off the radio. I was almost going to give the phone number as where to call in. So these are these crazies. Now, I told you about the hostages. These are 2 of them. Joseph St. Clair, that's the Air Force veteran, who I'm told suffers from PTSD, and Wilbert Joseph Castaneda. He is the Navy SEAL, I believe. Now, this is a horrible, horrible story that we have 2 members of our military stuck in Venezuela. Now, that needs to change. We can't have that happen. This is a story about those hostages in Venezuela that apparently Democrat members of Congress are ignoring.
Distinguished Flying Cross.
Joe St. Clair is a highly decorated Air Force veteran with 4 tours in Afghanistan. His family incredibly proud, but that pride is now overshadowed by pain.
Worried about him now. Just want him home.
The U.S. State Department confirms 33-year-old Joe St. Clair is being held against his will in Venezuela. He's believed to be in a notorious political prison. It's part of a pattern in Venezuela where Americans are kidnapped and held as pawns for political leverage.
I was speechless, and I remember sitting there feeling crippled. What do I even do?
Due to his time in the military, Joe suffers from severe PTSD. That is the hardest part for his mother, Patty. The darkness her son is enduring, with no end in sight.
He does not know that our American government or even his parents or his family members know where he's at and are fighting for him. That could be hopeless for someone to not even know that anybody knows where they're at.
It's believed a total of 9 Americans are currently being held in Venezuela. Their families are rallying in the nation's capital next week to draw attention to their plight. Meantime, a flag representing missing Americans overseas hangs outside the St. Clair home as 2 desperate parents pray for their son's safe return.
We're living with this day by day. This is an emotional crisis for us, and we're not going to stop fighting.
Yeah.
A State Department representative has been assigned to the St. Clair's case, but at this point, the family says there has been very little movement. Eric Wilkinson, King 5 News.
So, why isn't this a top priority of the United States government? My assumption is Does President Trump even know that these American hostages are there in Venezuela? Now, Rick Grenell went to Venezuela, and this is just last month, I believe. He brought 6 of these hostages home. These 2 were not of those 6, but he brought 6 home. That is great news. That's the power of Rick Grenell. He's a great guy. He's a great diplomat, and America's lucky to have him working for us. So Rick Grenell goes. Rick Grenell also got Venezuela to send planes to the United States to take home Venezuelan illegal aliens from the United States on their dime. This seems to be a growing trend. Only President Trump and guys like Rick Grenell who work for President Trump can get that kind of thing done. So we need to make sure that this happens. We need to make sure that we have somebody on it trying to get these ones, a veteran, Air Force veteran and a Navy SEAL stuck in a Venezuelan prison. That has to be unacceptable. I mean, we're America, for crying out loud. Let's get these boys home. All right. Let me, folks, tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company. This is the kits that I'm talking about. These are great. Okay. 8 of the most common prescription medications you need in here, including ivermectin. We see now with China, there's going to be a massive shortage of prescription medications. Get yours on hand now. 85% of the ingredients for prescription medications comes through China. There'll be tariffs on prescription medications as well. Lock in. I'm told the Wellness Company has a bunch of these kits on hand right now. I don't know how long they will last. twc.health/grant. This is how you be prepared in a 100% manner. Food and water, ammunition, power supply, prescription medications. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right. So we need to bring these guys home. This is what Stephen Miller is talking about. And the progress we're making under President Trump.
So, look, you've cataloged the horrors that have been inflicted. The rapes, the beatings, the murders, the fentanyl deaths by the hundreds of thousands, the destruction of entire neighborhoods in this country because of the Democrat Party's policy of open borders these last 4 years. You mentioned the threat of international terrorism that is on our shores, the millions of gotaways who entered under the previous administration, on top of the millions more unvetted that were caught and released into the country, and the millions more that were allowed to either fly into the country or overstay their visas. It is a clear and present danger to the national security of this country, and we have federal judges telling President Trump that he can't deport these threats from our communities. This is the choice facing every American. Either we all side and get behind President Trump to remove these terrorists from our communities, or we let a rogue, radical left judiciary shut down the machinery of our national security apparatus. President Trump is going to see this through to his conclusion, and we will find and remove every terrorist from this country, and President Trump will make this nation safer than ever before, and he'll do it over the fighting and opposition of the Democrat Party, over the fighting and opposition of the communist left-wing judges, over the fighting and opposition of the far-left federal bureaucracy. He will not be deterred, Sean. He will see this through, I promise you.
Well, I guarantee you President Trump will, and being deterred is not something in President Trump's vocabulary. These judges need to be reined in. I do believe Congress can help. Congress can set the ground rules for these judges, limit their rulings to simply in their own district that they oversee. Also, anything to do with a federal policy or federal executive order for President Trump, I believe Congress needs to mandate goes to a 3-judge panel, not a solo panel, so you can't go around and judge shop, because that's what these people do as well. They shop for judges. You do those things, we're going to solve this crisis very, very quickly. Now, we have illegal aliens in this country. We have Islamic terrorists that are illegal aliens in this country. I saw a report by a gentleman who went on the hunt for a man he believes is a terrorist that is here illegally. Well, he may be here actually legally, but he should be here illegally. Anyway, I'm going to play the report. He'll lay it out for you. But this is fascinating. He goes to the guy's house to try to find this alleged terrorist.
He's not here now? Is he working?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to work?
I don't know.
Terror watch list. He's working.
I found out the Border Patrol caught a man and his family sneaking in over the Texas border last November. His name is Hassan Bazi. He's listed on the terrorist watch list as a high classified, known, or suspected terrorist. Anyhow, they let him in anyway. He's living here in Dearborn. I even brought Mr. Bazi a housewarming gift. It's a plant from a dead man's wake. Now, I don't know much about the man except he's got no manners. I mean, he never thanked me for the plant I left on his porch. I've been here for a year and a half now. No sign of the guy. It's on the f***ing terror watch list. This is his brother. Well, is he living with you? Yeah. I've been coming over the months and nobody ever answers the door.
You came last time and you put the flower on the door.
Oh, did you get that?
Yeah, I get that. I don't like that.
It was a gift.
It's not a gift. That's a funeral. You know, it's not a terrorist. I don't know why you kept saying it's a terrorist.
Well, it's the government documents. It's not me. It's the FBI. It's Homeland Security. Is your brother working? We're going into year 4 of this guy in our country, and now there's a clearer picture of why this guy's on the terrorist watch list. Bazi was a wealthy man back in Venezuela with yachts and luxury condos. According to congressional testimony, he has ties to Venezuela's former vice president, Tariq al-Assami, who has alleged ties to Hezbollah and who is on ICE's 10 most wanted list for smuggling in tons of narcotics into the United States. A week before he jumped the Rio Grande, Bazi attended an al-Assami family funeral. So you figured he'd like the plants I left.
Señor Bazi. Es Carlitos Leduff, el periodista. Yo quiero hablar contigo. ¿Tú eres un terrorista, señor? Señor Bazi.
Then we saw an old lady pop out the side door.
Ma'am, I'm looking for Hassan Bazi. Yes.
He's not here.
He's not here? Is he working?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to work?
I don't know.
Is there a way I can get a hold of him?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know what it is.
So he's still in the country? Is he still in the country? I'll take that as a yes. So to review, he wades in across the Rio 3 years ago, a hit on the terror watch list. Nobody seems to know where he's at, or if he went to immigration court, and he's working. That's the new America. Bienvenidos.
Charlie LaBeouf is that guy's name. And he's an independent journalist. And that's the kind of work I wish I would see from mainstream television. But no, we have to rely on independent journalists to do that kind of work. Now, I want to talk about something I'm seeing the rise of. This goes back to the podcast yesterday. This so-called woke right. I do believe that there is a growing contingent inside the conservative movement of people who despise Israel and now have been given the go-ahead to openly announce their despisal of Israel. And this is really a hatred towards Jews. So we're seeing this on the left and the right. And, you know, I don't really understand it. People sent me a lot of things. Oh, go look at the Bible here. Go watch this documentary. The Jews are bad. They've been bad for a while. They're not the Jews of old. This, that. And you know, I just don't buy it. I see what I believe Israel to be doing in the Middle East, and that's providing stability in a region that has no stability. When you look at the Muslim faith, I'll take Judaism over the Muslim faith any day of the week. It's not to say that I don't have Muslim friends. I do. But I'm not a fan of the violence portrayed in that religion. So with that said, I asked my buddy Joel Pollack, who is managing editor over at Breitbart. He is Jewish. He's a big supporter of Israel, and he's a big-time conservative, obviously. What he thoughts about this growing movement of the, quote, woke right, and what is it? And this was my discussion with him. There's something being talked about called the woke right. And it seems to me to be an anti-Semitic group of so-called conservatives that are pushing this very anti-Semitic ideology that Jews are bad, Israel is bad, and all of these things. Joe Rogan has mentioned this. I've only just now started to see it. Are you aware of this, your thoughts on this, and what the woke right actually is?
The woke right is a largely online phenomenon driven by a few commentators who are focusing on the issue of Israel and more broadly the Jewish community. And they're imitating what the left has done over the last 20 years, which is to blame Israel and blame Jews for things that they don't like in our government, or for just a general sense of being powerless when big decisions are being made in Washington. They look at an issue like Israel, where Israel seems to have a very effective group of supporters, and they say, oh, well, we are powerless, but they are powerful, and there's something wrong with that because that's a foreign country, or this is a small minority group. Why are we feeling like nobody's listening to us? And they exploit that, and what's happening is it's being driven by a few commentators in particular, being driven primarily by Candace Owens, I'm sorry to say also by Tucker Carlson, and by several other people, some of whom were, I think, unfairly targeted in the past with accusations of anti-Semitism. I've actually defended some of the people I just mentioned in the past, but I think that the confrontation with some left-wing Jewish groups like the Anti-Defamation League has pushed them to more and more extreme positions. And so you now have Candace Owens becoming essentially a full-blown anti-Semite. You have Tucker Carlson putting people on his show who are conspiracy theorists and say completely unfounded things about Israel and about the Holocaust. And it spreads because it draws attention, it draws clicks, it draws likes and shares, it creates controversy. It doesn't really amount to anything in the real physical world. It's just almost a meme phenomenon on the internet right now. But it does affect some of what's going on, I think, behind the scenes in Washington in some of the fights over personnel in the Trump administration. There are people who are viewed as more pro-Israel and less pro-Israel, and the woke right is getting itself involved in some of these fights over personnel. And it could have some real-world effect down the line. But it is concerning.
Do you think it goes into the realm of race as well?
Not really. I don't see that. How do you see it happening that way?
Well, I don't know. I've just seen some rumblings that it's also, you're now seeing the rise of, for lack of a better term, a white power movement that is now becoming more vocal and more prevalent online, of course. And I didn't know if that falls into the woke right as well.
I don't think so. You know, that happened in 2015, 2016, 2017, and it was a small group of people. That was the era of Charlottesville and the whole Unite the Right rally and that whole controversy. I think those people are discredited, and what's different about the woke right phenomenon that's happening today is that the commentators who are driving it are careful to avoid those associations, at least explicit associations. They know that associating openly with people who declare themselves to be white supremacists and so on is going to discredit whoever gives them a platform. So they're much more careful and much more sophisticated. And if you challenge what they're saying, they'll just say, well, I'm just raising questions. I'm just asking about this and that. I've actually invited Tucker to be on my Sunday show. I've offered to be on his show and debate some of these issues. No response, of course, because they're not actually interested in debate. There's also a question that's arisen as to how many of the people pushing this are actually funded by outside organizations or even outside countries. There are some outlets that are funded by Qatar, for example, or that have money or advertising from Qatari sources, that are busy raising questions, quote unquote, about Israeli influence, but are actually getting financial support from the Qataris who like to invest in American media. So,
can you name one of those organizations?
I will refrain from getting into specifics only because if you don't have your facts nailed down completely and you start getting into that, you open yourself to litigation. But certainly there does seem to be funding flowing from Qatar to at least some online outlets. And not all of them are behaving badly, but this has been a problem before. Almost a decade ago, there were several Jewish organizations actually that got money from Qatar. The Qataris invited people to visit Doha and so forth. And it was a huge controversy in the Jewish community, but the Qataris reasoned, well, let's try to influence the American Jewish community to change what it says about Qatar. And you know, that worked to some extent. I mean, there's a scandal right now in Israel where a lobbyist, an American lobbyist, was taking money from Qatar to make it look like the Qataris were doing more to help the hostages than the Egyptians. I mean, this is a game Qatar plays everywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's partly driving this. And, of course, the irony is that some of the same people who are taking this foreign money are making claims about foreign influence. But
it's an interesting conundrum. Go ahead, Joel, we're running out of time.
Yeah, just last point. The United States remains the friendliest country in the world outside of Israel to Jewish people. The American people support Israel for reasons that have nothing to do with any of this. So I think broadly the picture is still very optimistic and very good, and the Trump administration is doing amazing things. But, you know, this is becoming part of the media diet that we all consume every day, and therefore it's concerning.
Well,
so, you know, it's amazing, and Joel Pollak does great work, and I wanted to play that because I thought it's an interesting perspective from his, being as a Jewish conservative who's such a bigwig at Breitbart, to talk about this. Now, I feel like the media is forgetting about what's happening in Israel. We're getting word that Israel is going to launch a massive attack into Gaza. I think they need to wipe Hamas out once and for all. The problem with that is Iran. There are rumblings that they could not only send a drone attack of thousands of drones into Israel, but also ballistic missiles armed with nuclear weapons. If Iran has nuclear weapons, as some believe, you could see preemptive strikes from the United States or Israel in preparation of an attack into Gaza, because Israel knows that Iran will respond if this happens. So we're keeping a close eye on that, folks, and not a lot of people are talking about it. The Ukraine situation, what a disaster. Vladimir Zelensky is a grifter, okay? The man knows that his jig is up the moment this war ends. The money stops flowing, it's over. War ends, he loses power in Ukraine. People are not happy with him. So he wants the war to continue. So he says, we're not giving up any more territory. We're not giving up any territory. Now, that includes Crimea, the area that Russia took in 2014. It is in Russia's control. Now, you think you're getting that back? Not a chance. Under President Trump's ceasefire deal, peace deal, was that the front lines would be stalled right where they are. What that means is Russia would have to give up taking territory that it believes it is, but it hasn't gotten that territory yet. So Russia would be giving up some of what it thinks it is. Ukraine would have to give up some things, but in the end, Vladimir Putin probably doesn't care either way, because if the United States does what President Trump and J.D. Vance are saying it's going to do, that unless you have peace, we're not in this war anymore. It's over. No more money. There's no way that Ukraine can beat Russia. It needs the United States. From targeting, much of the intelligence and targeting capabilities of Ukraine comes from the United States military, to, of course, the weapons and funding the military assault on Russia. Without that, Ukraine is dead. Russia will come in and take over the entire country. How Vladimir Zelensky doesn't realize that, I don't know. Europe is talking about picking up the slack. Europe's not going to be able to do it. Not even close. We all know that. Zelensky should. The problem is, I think Zelensky may be dumb. I really do. I don't think he's a very smart leader. And so, as that plays out, we'll watch. But I think it will come to an end with either the U.S. making a minerals deal and Zelensky agreeing to a deal once he comes to his senses, or this will happen very quickly. No deal, and Russia comes in very, very quickly and takes over all of Ukraine. And quite frankly, I no longer care about what happens in that country other than the fact that I want the killing and suffering to end. That's it. So we'll see how it plays out. I'll continue to cover it. A lot of people are not. All right, folks, that is going to do it for the show today. Don't forget the website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. It's so great to be along with you. Real America's Voice show tonight. I got Steve Hilton on. He is the former Fox News commentator who is running for governor in California, just announced. He'll be on the program tonight. Should be great. And then interesting when it comes to the vaccine, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth made a declaration that they were unlawful orders to mandate these soldiers and members of our military get vaccinated. Well, if they issued unlawful orders, that opens up a legal crevasse for these persecuted soldiers to exploit. What will happen to officers who gave those unlawful orders? We're going to talk about that with Ivan Rachel, who's a intelligence guy, former member of the military, and a great strategist. So we're going to talk to him tonight on that. So a big show on Real America's Voice, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you tune in there. Please, folks, hit the follow button. If you're watching on any platform, hit the subscribe or follow button. That's how we continue to spread the voice. Copy, paste the link, spread it out on all your social media platforms. You know that I appreciate it. We are in this together. Stinchfield's Army rolls because of you. We'll see you tonight on the Real America's Voice show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hmm.